So, Dallas Cowboys draft recap. Let's start off talking about Micah Parsons, who, listen, this is kind of what Dallas does, right? Where they go out and they don't really care about positional value, or I shouldn't say positional value, about need. They kind of just go best player available. Parsons, to me, was clearly the best player available. I've compared him to a Devin White, which to me, I feel like that's a fair comparison. Might not be the most polished in coverage, but the splash plays he can make are absolutely incredible. The question is just, are they getting closer to winning with this selection? Van Der Esch can't stay healthy, so maybe that's just the hope is you're just sort of giving up on Van Der Esch, but that's kind of what you're doing by making this selection, which, either that or you're going to trade someone, which I don't know if they're going to do. But as a whole, the fact that Dallas does this and tends to draft best player available means they tend to get good players in the first round. So I can't hate on it too much. I do like the value of Parsons a good amount. And again, they could use another linebacker. You can play 3 linebacker sets. You can do that. They let you. You're allowed to do that. They also in the second round got Kelvin Joseph, which is an interesting pick. I want to watch more tape on him, to be honest, because he had a good amount of pass deflections and good ball skills when he was with Kentucky. And he also, he runs pretty fast, runs a 4.34. Now that is pro day time, but still probably right around 4.4, which is what you want from a guy. So he can sort of keep up with these fast receivers because speed matters a lot when it comes to the cornerback position. People make fun of me for talking about it all the time, but the reality is if you have speed and you have good ball skills, you're probably going to be a good corner. Like that, those guys tend to work out. So I'm interested in this, getting a corner. I think they wanted like a Horn or a Surtain, but both those guys actually have speed issues. So getting someone like a Kelvin Joseph, it makes sense to me. Like I get this logic, and getting a good corner here, I am absolutely on board. In the third, they got Osa Ignakuzua. Definitely did not say that right. I apologize, Osa. Not these names really give me some trouble, but he's an interesting player. So he, a little bit undersized for a defensive tackle at 6'1", 282, which is about Aaron Donald's size. So I guess, you can be effective as a defensive tackle with that size, but it seems like probably what he'll be is sort of a 3-4 defensive end, which kind of works to his size pretty well. And, he seemingly did a good job at rushing the passer over the middle. So, makes sense. And this is a position that has been a need for quite some time for Dallas. So I get it. Also in the third round, they got Chauncey Goldson, who is interesting. He's not the fastest guy at, he ran a 4.8 40. And again, these are pro day times, so that's not great, but he has good length. And again, in the third round, it seems like you're kind of going after some length. I get the logic there. So it makes sense getting him out of guy from Iowa. They also went out and they drafted Nahshon Wright, a 6'4" corner, which big corners are always fun. The concern is, 4.47, which that's his 40-yard dash time. So that's not great, right? He can't break 4.5 on a, laser time. At least typically you always kind of add a tenth of a second, which would be 4.57, which is not, Nahshon Wright, not great, I would say. And that's kind of the concern is he a bit too slow? But the one thing I'll say about speed is in this Dan Quinn system, he likes to play cover 3. He likes to let his corners kind of have some separation already. So maybe Wright could actually thrive when he's playing 8 yards off every play, isn't going to get beat deep, and can come in and make plays and sort of take advantage of his height a little bit. Although very skinny, 183 at 6'4". He might have to put on some pounds. That's very skinny. So maybe a little concern there, but I don't know. Interesting. And also then their next pick, which they got in the fourth round, Jabril Cox, who everyone was confused about why he fell this far. Sorry, I do not have the answer. I do not know why he fell this far either. I thought that I have a first-round grade on him, so him falling this far, surprising to me. I think he's really good. He reminds me a lot of a Zach Cunningham type player. I'm not sure if he has the biggest upside, but he plays good coverage, and he, maybe not the best run stopper, but at the same time, like, again, fourth-round talent, you got to take advantage of this. He's much better than that, and it's hard to get good coverage linebackers. So when you can get one, even if now you have 4 linebackers. Hey, he's the better player. He's going to be a better depth piece than getting a depth piece that's just not as good in a position of need, I think. So I like the pick. A couple more just clear depth pieces to me. Josh Ball, offensive tackle in the fourth. Listen, La'el Collins and Tyron Smith have both had their injuries. So getting a guy who he might end up having to start, you need some depth here. Understand this pick whatsoever. I totally understand this pick. And in the fifth round, they get Simi Fehoko out of Stanford, who I actually think is interesting. He was someone who he jumped out at me. I was watching tape for, I forget exactly who it was. It might have been Mills, but I'm not sure if they played. If I could be wrong about that, but I was watching tape on someone in Stanford, and he sort of just jumped out at me. It's like, oh, this guy can play, so he might actually be really good value. Keep your eye out on him. I think I haven't done a ton of film study on him. He isn't even someone I meant to watch film on. He just happened to be one of those guys that you're watching film of someone, and then someone else jumps out. So keep your eye out for him. I think that he's interesting to me. And again, fifth round, it's sort of a good value pick, I think. They got Quinton Bohanna, defensive tackle, out of Kentucky in the sixth round, who's another guy who I'm fascinated by. Again, 327 pounds. So they got a guy who's kind of an undersized defensive tackle that are getting a bigger guy. I don't know exactly what they want to plan, how they plan on using him, but getting a bigger defensive tackle makes sense when that was an area of weakness last year. And they also, in the sixth round, Israel Mukamu is another interesting guy. So he got a lot more targets because he was playing opposite J.C. Horn. So he's this guy from South Carolina who teammates from J.C. Horn. But what's interesting about him is, because he got a lot of targets, his stats are incredible. He had 7 interceptions and 17 pass deflections. So I don't really care about stats, but that's kind of part of it. So, a big corner. He's also 6'4", so clearly size. That's something that Dan Quinn values. I get it. And, with that system, it makes some sense. He could be interesting. He's someone who they've talked about potentially moving him to safety. I don't know exactly what they'll do, but he feels like better than a sixth grade talent just from what I've read about him. Although, again, admittedly, have not watched his tape, so he might suck. I mean, I watched a little bit of it because I sort of saw J.C. Horn, and it didn't really stand out one way or the other. I never at one point said, like, oh, looks great, or oh, looks horrible. But I wasn't really focused on him. I was focused on Horn. So usually it's, especially with secondary guys, you can kind of only keep your eye on one guy. At least that's the way it is for me. And then in the seventh round, Matt Fairnock, guard out of Nebraska, they draft him. It's a depth piece. We get it. But interesting draft from the Cowboys. They had a lot of picks. They went a lot on defense. No one can say they didn't address the defense. I mean, they went, I believe it was the first 6 picks with defense, and they got a couple more later too. So only one wide receiver, who I think was just a good value pick, and then the guard in round 7. And they had a lot of picks. So interesting draft for Dallas. They knew they needed to improve their defense, and they're getting a new scheme, it seems like. Although they kind of ran a cover 3 scheme last year, just wasn't a very good one. So that's why they kind of have added Dan Quinn. So interesting stuff. I think I like a lot of the drafts. I'm not sure, again, kind of the question mark is just the first round, not really the player, but the fit. However, I do think he'll be very good. They got a lot better, I think, and I could easily see Dallas having a better defense. So I'm kind of a fan. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.